Welcome to the Sheffield Sunday As Bill Sees It's meeting. This is a main share meeting, and today it is with great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome John C. from Ontario, who's come to share for about 40 minutes, after which we'll open up for general sharing, or if you would like to ask a question. Thank you, John. It's really wonderful to have you here. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sammy. That's very kind of you. And thank you, Mary, for that great reading. And I picked it out because it really describes something very subtle, but yet gigantic. And I want you to know, first of all, that I come here today not as an authority of prayer, by the way, and I'm not trying to persuade you of anything. I'm simply just stating my experience and what's meaningful to me in this moment. And what I find, and I'm sure you find the same thing, is that it's ever changing. My perspective is changing. What I believe to be true changes. So as we open up ourselves, we begin to see this fluidity that is natural. It is a life journey. So I come here really delighted and happy that I'm with you. And at the same time, humble to the very fact that we're talking about something that is almost impossible to imagine. So what I want to do today is really describe to you what praying rightly means to me, John, not how you should pray. And Wilson was kind of, I think, a very, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It is amazing the insight that this man has at this level. And one of the things we're going to talk about a lot about is grant me my wishes instead of thy will be done. So we're going to talk about praying rightly. We're going to talk about acceptance, what it is and what it's not. We're going to talk about will, self-will and willingness. We're going to talk a little bit about cause, grace, and alignment, and how goodness, compassion, love, and service actually arise as a result of putting aside resistance and defiance. And I'm hopefully going to do that not in a religious or theological context, but as a lived recovery language. So, when I first came to AA, I thought I was praying. I said words, I meant them. At least I thought I did. Sometimes I was very emotional, sometimes very serious. But if I'm honest, I was still at the center of the prayer. I wasn't asking to be changed. I was asking to be spared. That's why this reading from Bill Sees It stopped me when I finally heard it. We had always said, grant me my wishes instead of thy will be done. That line didn't offend me in any way. It recognized me. So, Bill isn't criticizing prayer. He's diagnosing self-deception. He says that we are either superficial, going through motions, or emotional, mistaking intensity for depth. And in both cases, he said, we have been asking something for nothing. And that's a hard sentence, but it's not a cruel one. It simply means I wanted relief without transformation, comfort without change, grace without alignment. And Bill tells us the cost of that is incapable of receiving enough grace to restore us to sanity. Grace wasn't absent. Capacity was. So let's talk a little bit about how we come and what surrounds us in our prayer life. The first thing I want to point out is about acceptance. In recovery, acceptance was one of the most misunderstood words we use. Some of us hear acceptance and think it means giving up or resignation. This is just how it is. Emotional shutdown. That kind of acceptance feels heavy, defeated, often resentful underneath. It is not what recovery is pointing to. Giving up is collapse. Acceptance is clarity. Here's a working definition that's helped me with acceptance. Acceptance is the willingness to see reality clearly without resistance, so I can respond wisely instead of reactively. Acceptance doesn't mean I have to like it, have to approve of it, or stop acting. It means I've stopped arguing with what already is. Something remarkable happens when that fight stops. Energy returns, perspective opens, choice becomes possible. Acceptance doesn't change lives immediately. It changes how much energy I waste fighting life. So this is where praying rightly comes alive. Grant me my wishes prayer is resistance. Resistance to consequences, resistance to discomfort, resistance to reality. Thy will be done prayer is acceptance first, not passivity, not giving up, but alignment. Acceptance is the doorway through which grace enters. Grace does not enter in clenched fists. It enters with an open hand. Next thing I want to share with you is about the word will. It matters deeply in our program. You know, in Latin, it's voluntaris, means the will is a noun. Vale means to will, which is a verb, and causa causes that we bring something into being. Here's a key distinction. Self-will says, I am the cause. Even when it is spiritual, I will cause myself to be better. I will cause goodness. I will fix this. That sounds noble, but it still places me at the center. Willingness is something very different. It's about alignment. I am available. It says, I am willing to let the true cause act through me. This is why willingness comes before power in recovery. Willingness doesn't create goodness. It removes the obstruction to it. Now, just to build on this, the background in which we pray, we have to look like powerlessness is not helplessness. This is one of the most damaging confusions in recovery. I'm powerless, so I can't do anything. I have no agency. I just have to wait. That interpretation leads to passivity, avoidance of responsibility, and spiritual resignation. And this is not what step one is pointing to. Powerless is specific, not global. I am powerless over the first drink. I am not powerless over the response to life. Powerless names the limit of self-will, not the absence of choice. Powerlessness didn't remove my responsibilities. It clarified it, where responsibility actually works. That's a paradox. The moment I admit I had no power, I discovered where the power actually is. Powerlessness ends futile effort, stops false control, creates humility, opens receptivity. That is why step one is the gateway and not the destination. Helplessness feels like nothing I do matters. Why try? I can't change anything. Helplessness drains energy. Powerlessness redirects it. You could say helplessness shuts me down. Powerlessness opens me up. And the second part of that first step is that my life was unmanageable, which is not about alcohol. It is another quiet but critical insight. Alcohol was a symptom and not the root. Sobriety would fix everything. Time would heal it, and abstinence would bring peace. But that's not what we experienced. Life was unmanageable because my thinking was distorted. My emotional responses were extreme. My need to control was relentless, and my self-reliance was absolute. Alcohol didn't cause my unmanageability. It temporarily masked it. You might say alcohol was gone. The real unmanageability showed up. Unmanageability is an internal condition. Life didn't become manageable when circumstances changed. It became manageable when resistance decreased, acceptance increased, alignment replaced control. Unmanageability is not chaos on the outside, it's chaos on the inside. And this is where everything we've discussed locks together. Powerlessness exposes the limits of self-will. Unmanageability reveals the cost of self-centered thinking. Acceptance releases resistance. Willingness aligns the will. Prayer opens up the capacity for grace. Alcohol is just the doorway. Real work is learning how to live without being the cause of everything. This is something that I had to learn in my life. I thought I could cause just about anything. I could change. I could do anything that I imagined myself to do. See, I didn't recognize this. This is a form of self-centeredness. It's a form of replacing God in my life. And I soon learned that even though my good intentions, my commitment to change, I could not master change in itself because I didn't have the power. So I had to open up to this possibility that where is the first cause? And of course, that relationship gets started with prayer. And not just prayer, but praying rightly. Powerlessness doesn't mean that I can't act. It means I stop acting where I'm ineffective. Life was not unmanageable because I drank. I drank because life was unmanageable. Sobriety didn't fix my thinking. Recovery began when my thinking became teachable. Acceptance didn't make me weak. It made me available. So let's bring it back to sanity in Bill's language. Bill doesn't promise happiness, comfort, or control. He promises enough grace to restore us to sanity. Sanity means proportion, perspective, and pause. Appropriate responses. That's what powerless makes room for. A strong bridge to sentences I could use is this. Powerless was never about being helpless. It was about discovering where my will stops working so something greater could begin. Friends, just to put this in perspective, Let's think of a metaphor that we can actually use to make all of these things kind of make sense. So I've come to think about recovery as being like a river. Life is the river. That's reality. The river is always moving. It has currents. It has rocks. It has calm stretches and rapids. The river does not stop because I argue with it. It does not slow down because I'm afraid. The river is reality. Alcohol was never the river. Alcohol was not the river. Alcohol was how I tried to escape the river. When alcohol was gone, I suddenly become more peaceful. I was just in the river without anesthesia. That's when I discovered that my life was unmanageable. Not because the river was wrong, but because I didn't know how to be in it. Self-will says, I'll row upstream. I'll control the direction. I'll force the water to behave. That effort is exhausting, and it leads to panic, resentment, and collapse. And this is where giving up happens. Powerlessness is dropping the illusion of control. It means I cannot control the river. And at the moment I stop trying to, I discover something important. I still have an oar. Helplessness throws the oar away. Helplessness says, what is the point? I can't do anything. That's when I lay down in the boat and let the river toss me around. That's not recovery. That's despair. Acceptance is facing downstream. Acceptance is the moment I stop rowing against the current and turn the boat in the direction the river is already moving. Nothing outside changes, but everything inside does. Energy returns, clarity appears, choice becomes possible. Willingness is picking up the oar correctly. Willingness is not rowing harder, it's rowing with the current. That's where does the effort actually work here? I don't control the river, but I can steer, avoid rocks, move toward calmer water, help others in nearby boats. Prayer is the listening for the current. Praying rightly isn't shouting orders at the river. It's saying, help me feel the direction of the flow. Prayer aligns me with reality instead of demanding that reality align with me. Grace is the power of the river itself. Grace is not something I create. Grace is the movement of the water. And when I stop resisting, the water carries me. My job is not to be the cause. My job is to be aligned. Service is the noticing. Someone spinning in circles, someone rowing upstream in panic, someone who dropped their oar. I don't rescue the river. I sit beside them and say, you're not broken. You're just fighting the current. So the bottom line is, recovery didn't give me control of the river. It taught me how to stop fighting it, picking up my oar, and let grace do what it always has done. This is how we enter into prayer. So let me just offer something here for you. So here's a poem, and it's called What is Available. What do you seek is not far from you. It does not arrive by force, nor does it respond to demand. It waits, not for perfection, but for openness, not for strength, but for willingness. And when you stop insisting on being the cause, life does not disappear. It begins to move. Grace enters quietly, where resistance once lived. Goodness finds hands that are empty. Love moves where fear loosens. Service flows when self steps aside. You do not have to create this. You only have to allow it. And in that allowing, something ancient remembers you. This is what's available today and now. Friends, when we enter prayer, it's a sense of sanctity. It's a sense of holiness. It's a sense of deep communication. It isn't just words to be repeated over and over again. It is meaning. It has experience tied to it. And when we continue to ask for things, grant me my wishes, we cut off a lot of grace that's available to us, that is at hand, but we cut it off because we want what we want, rather than being open to transformation, rather than being uncomfortable with hardships, rather than wishing for it to all go away, which is resistance, that we finally align ourselves with what life actually is as it is appearing to us. This, to me, is magic. Because all the energy that I wasted in my life fighting the river only told me, my goodness, it's just a waste of energy, waste of time. And what I was trying to control, I could not control. That's the insanity of this. So I had to learn to become available. Thy will be done. You see, I want my life to be the way I want my life to be. I'm at the center of this universe, which intensifies this self-centeredness. And I don't pray perfectly, by the way, or rightly all the time. I'm sometimes desperate and I want reversals to happen. I got pain about anything that could happen in my life, and I want it removed because I don't like pain. That seems to me like a hallmark of addiction. Is I don't like pain and I'll do anything to get rid of it. But yet there's a more mature response to that. Mature response means something like, I'm okay with the pain. Show me the willingness to deal with it. What am I to learn from this experience? That is a more appropriate response. In other words, I'm not praying for outcomes. I'm praying for a process of transformation. Thy will be done. To begin to trust that idea, that there's something outside of ourselves, a power greater than ourselves, that was actually there to support and walk with me in this life. And although I don't understand a lot of things that occur to me, and I don't like a lot of things that have occurred to me, what I'm searching for today is alignment, not the way to make my life comfortable or at ease. That now is not something that I search for or ask for. Now, I am a believer that I bring all things to prayer in spite of our reading today. But I don't just ask or petition God for the things that I want. I sit and I'm grateful and I'm thankful for the gifts that have been given me. And that I live in a peace and joyful experience because I've been given the magic code, if you like, the grace to recognize that once I align myself with the river, pointing myself with the flow, using the oar properly, I then can have a fulfilling life based on my sacred identity. This is what's available. It is available to us at any given moment. It's always available to us. But the thing that prevents us from seeing this, the veil in between us and reality, is self-delusion. And in prayer, that veil comes down. So what I like to do is offer a prayer to each of you. So let's get ready. This is how I pray, by the way. I get ready for prayer because let's face it, when I'm walking around day in, day out, I'm loaded with preoccupation. I'm loaded with distractions. I'm loaded with, what something might be worrying me or what something I'm afraid of. And what I do is take a moment to walk through the gateway into this sacred moment. So if you're comfortable, you might place your feet on the floor and bring your attention to your breathing. No need to change it. Just notice it. As you breathe in, you might quietly acknowledge whatever you're carrying right now. And as you breathe out, allow yourself to be here in this moment. God, we come not asking for our wishes, but for the willingness to live rightly today, to help us accept life as it is, without resistance or fear. Give us the clarity to see our part. Align our will with what brings goodness, compassion, love, and let your power move through us in simple acts of service. Restore us to sanity one day at a time. Amen. My hope is that you could experience some of those words in the grace in which you are receiving. See, prayer rightly is an experience. It isn't reading. It isn't memorizing words. It's an experience. And what I often do is pray with the visualization that is actually taking place as I am praying. So when I ask for allow this love and compassion and empathy to arise in me, I'm not asking God to give it to me. I'm acknowledging the fact that I've already been given this gift, and I'm letting resistance step aside so that I can have these beautiful expressions come up from my sacred identity. This is how goodness, compassion, and love enters into my life. I don't create it. I don't demand it. I simply appreciate the gift that's been given to me. Friends, when we pray rightly, the world changes. We change. We change. And this is the beautiful part of our steps, that we begin to see how self-centeredness interferes with the quality of our life. We begin to see the consequences of these things by saying, grant me my wishes. And at some point in your spiritual journey, you're going to either have already dropped that idea or you will drop it, because it doesn't serve us well. It just provides anxiety, upset, stress, and a waste of energy. Alignment is what we're looking for. Alignment to what? Reality. This is what we're looking for. So friends, I'm at my end of my talk. I want to thank you very much for your generous listening, and I look forward to hearing your comments.